Goldman Sachs has raised their gold target to $2,900 an ounce by early 2025. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Still Report, and you'll always get best in class service from Patriots Protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-869-9656 for a free investor guide today. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. Call 888-869-9656. Good Christmas evening. I'm still reporting on Trump. Yesterday, President Trump mentioned that he was interested in buying Greenland from Denmark, a sort of remembrance of how President Andrew Johnson bought Alaska from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million. Denmark scoffed at the Trump proposal, saying Greenland is not for sale. Joe Pinion last night on Newsmax discussed the idea with Neil Chatterjee and my favorite strategic analyst, Gordon Chang.
I'm Joe Pinion in for Rob tonight. Well, deal or no deal? That is the question. After completing the greatest political comeback in the history of our nation, Donald J. Trump, the man who wrote The Art of the Deal, is attempting to close the deal of a lifetime. Strategic control and influence over the largest island on our planet, Greenland. Now, the political left has mocked the plan. The Danish have all but dismissed the idea, and yet both the liberals at home and elites abroad seem oblivious to reality that President Trump has been keenly aware of since he began his pursuit of Greenland during his first term. There is a reason why Xi Jinping proposed building a polar Silk Road trading route through the Arctic corridor. And there is a reason why Russia, who has long made wild and reckless territorial claims over territory in the Arctic and all the natural resources that go along with them, have accelerated their efforts. Because a showdown is coming. And America has two choices: lead or get left behind. And whether we like it or not, the pursuit of a perch for self-determination in this particular arena, well, it goes directly through Greenland. And why? Well, it is simple. The ice is melting. That's not a green and new scam. It's just a cold, hard fact. And ironically, in what can only be viewed as a self-hating, suicidal obliviousness, the same people who won't stop talking about the melting ice caps and the plight of the polar bears ignore the fact that when the ice gets thinner, Russia and China no longer need to take the scenic route to their front door. Now they can wave at the port of Montreal or attempt to repurpose Ellis Island in just half the time. And so all of this presents a serious problem, particularly since under the watchful eye of one Joseph Robinette Biden, we have watched the Chinese Navy grow to eclipse the size of the United States Navy for the first time in modern history. This at the same time that Biden's failed after-the-fact sanctions of Russia put Putin's invasion of Ukraine did very little except driving the Kremlin directly into the strategic arms of the Communist Party, with Russia now eclipsing Saudi Arabia as the leading importer of crude oil to China. And so here we are, folks, with these two once dueling nations turned strategic allies. They are now conducting joint naval exercises in the South China Sea, but more importantly, in October of this year, conducting their first joint maritime patrol. Where? You guessed it, the Arctic. So yes, the Prime Minister of Greenland can laugh and call Donald J. Trump's plan a joke. Denmark can turn their nose up at Donald J. Trump's plan and say Greenland is not for sale. But it is laughable for them to believe that when Russia and China show up, knock on their front door and say, we're taking your island of 58,000 people and the natural resources that come along with it, that they have a chance in hell without America's support. Donald J. Trump is asking Greenland to come to the table and help codify peace on equitable financial terms. China will not ask, and Russia, for those keeping track at home, well, they are already proceeding at rapid pace, breakneck speed, without an invitation. So yes, it would be a legacy-defining deal for Mr. Art of the Deal to put Greenland in America's column. But more importantly, it would be a nation-defining moment to take the steps required to shield ourselves from the prospect of the next Pearl Harbor, a 21st century Pearl Harbor. See, there are many reasons why the great wars of yesterday were not fought on U.S. soil. But the easiest factor to comprehend is clear. We have the greatest home field advantage of any prosperous nation in the modern history of the world. It is difficult to reach us, but it's getting easier. Russia has figured it out. China has figured it out. The past and future president of our great nation, Donald J. Trump, has figured it out. And those who claim they love freedom, they better stop fighting him and start helping him before the war we fought 2 wars to prevent comes to a town near you. Joining us now is Neil Chatterjee, former chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission under President Donald J. Trump, along with Gordon Chang, author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Look, Neil, this is not the first time President Trump has talked about this, and he's not the first American leader to propose such an idea. I want to take a look back in 2019 when these ideas first started coming through the lips of Donald Trump. Get your reaction.
This is something that's been discussed for many years. Harry Truman had the idea of Greenland. I had the idea. Other people have had the idea. It goes back into the early 1900s. But Harry Truman very strongly thought it was a good idea.
So look, I mean, it's quite clear. ChatGPT doesn't power itself. All of these cars that we need for the 21st century won't power themselves. The energy needs of the 21st century are vast, and the wars of the future, they're going to be fought over natural resources, my friend. They're not going to be fought over the things we fought about yesterday.
You're 100% correct. Look, it is incumbent upon us. We must win the AI race against the Chinese Communist Party. And in order to win that AI race, we need electric power to support the data centers necessary to underpin AI. And so I think that's why this kind of, America first energy security posture is exactly right. But then when you look at how the traditional wars of the past century have been fought, looking at Greenland is also essential. Look, I had the opportunity to see the Arctic Circle this past summer. And what I saw was that our adversaries, Russia in particular, they're investing in things like ice cutter ships that can take advantage militaristically of Arctic melt and, kind of attack our flank because they can take advantage of the impacts of climate change and global warming, melting that Arctic permafrost. So I think it's both preparation for 21st century warfare over AI and making sure we have the energy to win that war, combined with understanding that we've got to guard our Arctic flank and that our adversaries actually see advantage in climate change, thawing the permafrost. That should be alarming to all Americans and all these progressives who just universally hate Trump and want to criticize anything he does and say, oh my God, he's being an imperialist looking at Greenland. Well, think about this. Because we do energy production better, cleaner than anyone else on Earth, if we can actually help slow Arctic melt, that not only helps our national security, it helps fight climate change.
Gordon, I want to get you in this conversation because, again, to me, you look at what's happening here. You've got a Chinese Communist Party that doesn't care about anything other than total, complete victory. You see them trying to creep into the Arctic. We see Russia already making wild territorial claims in the Arctic. Again, the world is governed by choke points and buffers. If we're trying to win this war, if we're trying to seek higher ground and make sure that, again, Russia doesn't come strolling past the Statue of Liberty, that the CCP doesn't come strolling past the Statue of Liberty, the choke point of all choke points is making sure that we have better strategic control over Greenland.
Yeah, both the Chinese and the Russians realize the strategic importance, the critical importance of the Arctic. And Canada and the United States, we've neglected it. You know, China is now on the Arctic Council. It calls itself a near Arctic state, even though no part of China is close to the Arctic, because they realize how important it is for the reasons you mentioned. We have a Space Force base there. We know the Chinese have had these investment proposals for Greenland. That is really to threaten our position there. And of course, as you point out, they are trying to take control of the Arctic, especially with Russia's Northern Sea Route and with the Chinese and the Russians with their vessels in the region. So clearly, we have got to start paying much more attention there. And we've got to start paying much more attention to the Panama Canal, something else that Trump raised on Sunday.
Absolutely. Gordon, I actually want to stick with you because to that point, when we look at, again, what is President Trump trying to do? People are acting like these are wild and crazy ideas. You can go all the way back to the late 1800s when people have been talking about the need for more strategic control over Greenland. You know, talk to us a little bit about all of this in context with the missile silos being dug in the Chinese desert that have the ability to reach the eastern seaboard. Again, you talk about those ships. We used to have only a handful of nuclear ships that had the ability to get through the Arctic. Now you're having a proliferation of ships as you see that thinning. So again, there is a strategic need for the people of America to understand, if you want to make sure that the next great war is not fought on U.S. soil, the easiest way to prevent the war from happening ever is to make sure that we come to a new understanding about what the security needs around Greenland need to be.
Yes, and you know, with the Panama Canal, the Chinese have operations at both ends of it. They control it. And in the middle of 2022, General Laura Richardson, when she was the head of U.S. Southern Command, actually took a helicopter trip of the canal zone, and she pointed out that those Chinese facilities are dual use, which is a polite way of saying that the Chinese can control and close off the canal. And that means for the U.S., it's navies. We talk ourselves about a two-navy. Well, the point is we got one in the Atlantic and the one in the Pacific, and we're not going to be able to transfer ships from one to the other easily unless that canal is open, and the Chinese intend to control it, as they intend to control Greenland, as they tend to control other choke points that now we think are safe, but really are not.
Absolutely. About 30 seconds for you, Neil. Again, you listen to Gordon talking about these choke points, these buffers from the Strait of Malacca to the Panama Canal to what's happening here in the Arctic. Again, China looking to effectively make sure that their vulnerabilities can then also turn into strengths. Last word for you again. Why is it so critical, again, those rare earth minerals as well?
So look, I'm an energy guy. So my focus when I was the chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was on approving applications for exports of liquefied natural gas. U.S. LNG, cleaner than anybody else does it in the world, not only creates jobs at home, gives our allies an alternative to Russian gas, it also displaces dirtier sources of fuel overseas and lowers global carbon emissions. Right. One of the principal obstacles to U.S. LNG success economically is cost. Well, a big cost burden is the penalty that we've got to go through the Panama Canal, particularly to get shipments to Asia. And so I think President Trump has a point in putting leverage on Panama to bring down those costs. That's going to benefit the American consumers, the economy, national security, and the environment.
Absolutely. Either we control the canal or somebody else does. Either we control Greenland, or as you see with Xi Jinping, trying to create in many ways a polar Silk Road. Let that sink in, folks. They're not just going to stop because Greenland said no thank you. Look at what they've done all around the world, trying to use debt as influence in countries that can't afford to pay them back. Neil Chatterjee, Gordon Chang, appreciate you both for joining me on this Christmas Eve. God bless you both, and we'll talk soon.
I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.